When they call you the attorney of last hope, how does that make you feel?
Why couldn't I be the attorney of first choice? Because last hope, what that means is they've already gone through other attorneys and they've been denied. Filipinos in the U.S. are terrified. You even get to the point where I'm having U.S. citizens making appointments with me saying, I want to travel to the Philippines, is it safe? Even U.S. citizens, green card holders, and certainly the Tago na Tago, they're all nervous.
This is what also most Filipinos want to know.
Okay.
In this day and age, is it harder to get a U.S. visa and U.S. citizenship under the Trump administration?
I'm going to say yes. One of the things that they're doing now is checking people's social media. The embassy, if they see that, that could be grounds for denial as well. So
These are good tips.
I'm hoping, yeah. So that's where my practice comes in, helping people navigate through the complexities of immigration law and hopefully let them achieve their American dream.
Attorney.
Oh, hi, Toni.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again, too. Thank you for having me, too.
So how long has been the Citizen Pinoy has been going on?
It's been on for 21 years. You want to know the origins of Citizen Pinoy is that before, Filipinos were relying on rumor, gossip, hearsay, or they would go to parties or barbecues, and that's where they would learn about immigration or not. So we thought with TFC and ABS-CBN to put on an immigration show that explains things to them in plain English.
Para sa mga kababayan natin who are watching right now, Attorney Gurfinkel has built a career spanning over 45 years centered on representing the Filipino community in immigration matters. He graduated cum laude from UCLA and earned his law degree with honors from Loyola Law School. He's a member of the State Bar of California and the State Bar of New York, and he's also a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association and the Immigration Section of the Los Angeles County Bar Association. He founded the law offices of Michael J. Gurfinkel Incorporation, one of the most respected immigration law firms in the United States. He has been the host of Citizen Pinoy for 21 years and is widely known as the attorney of last hope. That's Attorney Michael Gurfinkel. He's
Thank
now
you.
here in the Philippines to share with all of us how is the U.S. immigration policy changing for Filipinos in the next few years.
Filipinos in the U.S. are terrified. You even get to the point where I'm having U.S. citizens making appointments with me saying, I want to travel to the Philippines, is it safe? Even U.S. citizens, green card holders, and certainly the Tago na Tago, they're all nervous. They are there in America, hoping, wishing, and dreaming of the time where they can perhaps legalize their status. So that's where my practice comes in, helping people navigate through the complexities of immigration law and hopefully let them achieve their American dream.
You have been practicing this for 40 years and you have helped so many Filipinos. My question is, why the Filipinos in particular?
Reason number one is asawa.
Your wife.
My wife is Filipina, and I really enjoy helping Filipino clients for a couple of reasons. Number one, they treat you like family. A lot of them have been in the U.S., they've been Tago na Tago a long time, separated from their family here in the Philippines. And if I'm able to reunite families, because one of my sayings is bringing families together, or helping them legalize their status so that they can finally have what I say, the tinik out of their throat. Did I say that correctly? Achieve the American dream. So
The American dream.
Uh-oh.
Ever since I was young, I always hear that. That's the reason why the Filipinos go abroad, is because they want to fulfill the American dream,
Yeah.
because it's the land of the free. There's so many opportunities for as long as you're hardworking. But that's not the state right now in the U.S.
Under Trump is being strict, but the immigration laws are still the same, more or less. It's just he's enforcing or going after people who are felons and terrorists and criminals, but the avenues are still available.
So what is the current situation of Filipinos now in the U.S.? Because I think there's a wave of fear.
Wave of fear And even some were thinking about self-deporting. But
Why are they thinking of self-deporting?
because they're freaking out so much.
Even if they don't have cases?
What's happening is some are even afraid to leave their house.
Even if they're already legal residents?
But even lawful permanent residents are nervous, especially to travel outside the U.S. So, okay, I get it. There's all of this fear, trauma, anxiety, and prayer. And what I tell clients is Trump, this is his second term. And they've been in the U.S. a long time. They were in the U.S. from 2016 to 2020 when he was president the first time. And he also was very strict and harsh on in connection with the approach to immigration, and they survived. And what I advise is see an attorney before doing anything drastic or anything. Because once they leave, I don't think they're ever going to go back to the U.S. And what if in 3 years there's an amnesty? They lost it, right?
So you've been doing this for 40 years. And if we go back, what has been your overall success rate with immigration cases?
The difficult cases, I think we did extremely well. First of all, you have to understand, Toni, Filipino cases are challenging. If it was simple and straightforward, most of them would have done it themselves.
So when you say difficult cases,
Well, like
Was
denied
it-
before.
unsuccessful.
I
So
get,
out of 10, like 8 out of 10, you were able
I'd
to
say
help.
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10, that's
Yeah.
why
Well,
you're
but
the
a lot of it has
miracle worker.
You have to also do the pre-screening as well. And when they consult with me, I just want to point out all the icebergs. Of course, attorneys cannot guarantee success. It's against the state bar rules, but I have always wanted to be upfront and honest with the clients.
What's the most difficult case you've ever handled?
What had happened was a woman in the States was petitioning her husband in the Philippines. She was still an immigrant, and then she came down with leukemia. He applied 5 or 6 times for tourist visa. It was all denied. Why? One of the main reasons for denial of a tourist visa is having an intent to immigrate. So when you're under petition intending to immigrate, that's exactly the opposite intention. So even though he wanted to visit his dying wife, he was getting denied. They consulted with me, the woman, and she's coming in, the wife, in a wheelchair already. And I mean, her legs were thinner than my arms. She's already, one eye is closed. She's
Really critical condition.
critical conditions. And we're talking back in the 90s. So back then, I saw she was eligible for citizenship. I got immigration to process her citizenship in 1 week.
In 1 week?
Yes. And the supervisor even called us back because when I sent a letter in asking to expedite the citizenship, and they agreed. So they expedite, they naturalize. We went to the ceremony even. I accompanied her, and the master of ceremonies even came down from the stage to, wish her well. I flew with her certificate of citizenship, got the petition upgraded. The embassy then issues him the visa,
Wow.
and he flies directly from the Philippines to, I think it was LA. He goes straight from the airport to the hospital by her side. And she died 9 hours later, but got her in before the death. Because had she died before arrival, then no more visa. But see, it still sticks with me, that case. It was heartwarming.
Heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time.
Yeah, it's like a lot of these cases could be teleserias.
Like, can you give me an example of a case that you handled that has a criminal record that you were able to help?
I guess criminal case that was popular here, and I'm able to tell you this because he was on our show. Ronald Sing Song spent a year in Hong Kong jail because of drugs. Again, knock on wood, I was able to get his tourist visa back again, despite having drugs. If anybody has a drug arrest or whatever, it can result in a lifetime ban.
Why do you think sometimes the Filipinos get denied for a tourist visa?
Okay, so let me explain the nature of a visitor visa. For a visitor visa, the consul is not that much interested in why you want to go to the US. What the consul is mainly focusing on is, have you convinced that consul that you have a strong enough reason to come back to the Philippines? It means everybody applying for visitor visa is presumed to want to immigrate unless they can prove to the consul that they want to come back. So if a person maybe does not have that well-paying of a job, they may have a strong incentive to go there. Once they get to the U.S., I'll give you an example, like a caregiver may make $3,000 a month U.S. as a caregiver. They're not going to be earning that kind of money here. So the consuls are aware of, and plus they do have a lot of situations where they go tago na tago. So that's why, getting back to your point, so many tourist visas can get denied. And the grounds are a law, it's called 214B. Refusal meaning you didn't prove you have a strong enough reason to come back to the Philippines. And I've had some people where they might go to the interview and they freak out with the I desperately need this tourist visa.
My mom did that.
Oh, she did?
Because my lolo, my grandfather, was sick.
Okay.
And they needed someone to take care.
Bingo! You just explained why the consul denied it. Why? Because, see?
No, you know what? Well, while you're talking, I was looking back at my mom's journey.
She said the wrong thing. So I'm going to play consul and what that consul was thinking behind the glass. I'm looking at this woman and she wants to go to America. Mm-hmm. Will she come back in 6 months? Well, no. She's going to care for an elderly, sickly parent. And that may take longer than 6 months. Is she going to leave the sickly parent and abandon the sickly parent and come back in obedience to the visa, or is she going to remain there and go tago na tago? Most people, most family, you're not gonna abandon your parents. So I think that's why when your mom said I need to go and look after my father, that's going to be more than a 6-month process.
That's why she was denied. And when we came back, year 2006, she was my manager. When they found out that she was my manager, then she got the 10-year multiple visa at that time.
Yeah. I'll give you another one. I got an invitation to somewhere. I got a
wedding.
A wedding.
I need to see my niece's wedding. Yeah.
I need to go.
That won't work?
No, not unless you are well established here in the Philippines. Just getting an invitation doesn't take away from, and I want all of you out there to be like Kalesa horses, with the blinders on. Focus. The consul wants to be comfortable that you have a strong reason to come back to the Philippines. For example, I travel around the world. I mean, we go on vacations. I cannot see myself, being away for more than 2 or 3 weeks, much more so 6 months.
This is what also most Filipinos want to know.
Okay.
Is it harder to get a U.S. visa and U.S. citizenship under the Trump administration?
I'm going to say yes, because Trump keeps harping on or emphasizing that he believed was very lax in terms of vetting people. So when you come to visitor visas, let's just take that, or immigrant visas and citizenship, one of the things that they're doing now is checking people's social media. So if you're an activist here and you're posting all kinds of, anti-American or pro-terrorist type of postings, the embassy, if they see that, that could be grounds for denial as well. So
these are good tips.
I'm hoping, yeah. I think
check your social media.
I guess you were
if you're
waiting.
Going to apply.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're waiting for chismes, but they're getting good. I think I'm trying to give you good information, which is what I do on Citizen Pinoy or my YouTube channel. A new thing that's coming out is Trump recently banned 75 countries from getting visas, okay? Philippines is not on it. The justification for it was because they would come to the States and they would start applying for benefits. Citizenship, you were asking me about tougher under citizenship. Yes, again, the same thing. Trump says, just don't approve them just before the election, because that's a big trick in the U.S. Just before an election, the Democrats typically would rush to naturalize as many people and they skip over. If your relative in the U.S. is going to be naturalizing, the USCIS is going to be digging deeper into how they got the green card and whether they got the green card legally. For example, being petitioned as single but secretly married, that may come out. Getting a green card, I've seen a few of these, getting a green card through marriage, and now they're applying for citizenship. Years and years later, immigration says that marriage was fixed. Just because you were approved before is not a guarantee they're going to accept that approval. They will dig and look behind it. That's one of the reasons why you may want to see an attorney before you file anything to make sure you are eligible, that you're not going to be endangering your current status, and all the documents and forms are filled out correctly and submitted.
If you apply for green card, is that something that you recommend for Filipinos?
If they're eligible, absolutely, absolutely, they should apply for that. Trump is still processing them, just as they always were. There is another thing, maybe for your family, your viewers here in the Philippines, something that a lot of Filipinos did not realize, and that is family in the U.S. can legally petition family here in the Philippines for an employment-based green card. So I'll give you an example. In the U.S., Filipinos have elderly parents and they need a caregiver, and they have a niece here in the Philippines. They can petition the niece to go to the U.S. to be caregivers, or petitioning a yaya or housekeeper.
And to work legally there.
To work, we're talking green card as well. So a lot of people thought family could only petition with a family petition. No, if you have a relative in the U.S. who maybe they have a 6-bed boarding care facility, and they can petition a family member here or anyone to go work over there.
I also want to ask now, are there cases that happen in the U.S. where a Filipino goes to the States and is sent back to the Philippines? It's like A to A.
Okay, so A to A is airport to airport, meaning
from the
you've had your
immigration.
15-hour flight, and you get off the plane, you present your passport at the immigration customs, they send you to the back room. Next thing you know, you're being
Sent back to the
on
Philippines.
the very same plane.
Why does that happen?
Okay, so there's a couple of...
When they're able to get their visa already.
Having a visa does not guarantee being admitted into the U.S. So you get your visa, which is in your entry ticket. Now you go to the airport, and it's up to Customs and Border Protection,
The immigration.
immigration at the airport, to decide if there's something about you that makes you what is called inadmissible, that you are not eligible to enter the U.S. So I'll give you a couple of items. One, famous for Filipinos in the past,
Okay.
and that is what I call assumed name passports, photo substituted passports. It's their picture, but it was like cut off and pasted onto somebody else's visa with a different name, and which is fraud, creates issues, and then they mail the passport back to the agency. Now I believe the embassies figured out a way to the Filipinos when they do that assumed name, because everyone gets fingerprinted. So if you fingerprint in one name, now you're coming back with a different name.
It's harder to trick the system.
You can't have two different things. So one is getting caught with fraudulent documents. So an extreme, in my opinion, airport to airport case was where a woman entered the U.S. or was attempting to enter the U.S. on the visitor visa, and then she was questioned extensively about her previous visit and what she did. She apparently previously came to the U.S., stayed at her Atty's house, that she was admitting that, well, what did you do the whole day when your sister's at work? I walked the dogs. Did your sister give you anything for walking the dogs? Well, she gave me $100 to...
That's a no-no. You shouldn't.
You worked. Worked. You're not supposed to work on a tourist visa. They cancel the tourist visa and send her back on that sort of thing. So
there's no guarantee that if you get your visa, once you get to the immigration in the U.S.,
it's a
that
second
you
thing.
can... There's another test.
If
it's test after test.
Or other ways, they open the luggage and there's your diploma and there's your job letter and things. I mean, I've traveled the world. I've never gone on vacation with my diploma.
That's why they opened the luggage.
Yeah.
You know, the last time they opened our luggage because
Okay.
I was flying with my parents,
Okay.
my kids. And you know how you have these big suitcases and then they said, here, we have to open your luggage. They have to
I
check
had a case like that too.
the food.
Oh, Longanisa?
No, hopya. It's
Okay.
for pasalubong. It's from my mom's bag.
Okay.
Were they able to send someone before because of what was inside the luggage?
A woman was in the U.S. visiting for like 6 months, and then she departs, and she comes back like a month later with 3 balikbayan boxes of her stuff. And the immigration asks her, how long are you going to be here on this trip? 2 weeks. Wait, 2 weeks with all that luggage? So what was really going on is she was here for 6 months, And then she liked it, so she went back for the month to pack her worldly belongings to make that final
To
trip.
migrate.
To migrate.
She's going to be TNT.
No, she was airport to airport. Oh, yeah.
That was her plan for the second
That was her
trip
plan,
to
yeah.
be TNT.
To come here and go tago ng tago. But she overpacked.
How would you like to be remembered as an immigration lawyer, attorney?
My clients are my legacy, and then all that I've been able to help over, the 45 years of my legal practice, the opportunities I have given them, and what they were able to achieve with them. So I'd like to be remembered by the achievements of my clients.
And what do you want to say to the Filipinos who dream of coming to America?
There is the American dream. Filipinos have that American dream. And if you want the American dream, yes, there are, even under Trump, may want to consult with an attorney. If not you here in the Philippines, maybe if you have family members in the US, and maybe there are ways. There could always be pag-asa.
And they can consult with you. You have 3 offices if they want to find you.
Yeah, I have offices in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York. I also have an office here
in the Philippines.
Yeah, that's to help the clients who are here in the Philippines. If the clients here have questions, they can call that office. We endorse the documents to them over there as well.
When they call you the attorney of last hope, how does that make you feel?
Well, the attorney of last hope, it makes me say, why couldn't I be the attorney of first choice? Because last hope, what that means is they've already gone through other attorneys and they've been denied. So now they're coming to me with denials or deportations. And then they accuse me of being mahal.
No, because the success rate of Attorney Gurfinkel is 9 out of 10.
It depends on the difficulty of the case as well.
That's like going to a doctor, a surgeon. It depends.
Yes.
What makes your job fulfilling and rewarding as an immigration lawyer?
Like I go back to the motto, helping people achieve the American dream and be reunited with their families. I've done some commercials, and it was like a montage of Filipinos meeting each other at the airport upon arrival from here to an airport in the States. But just to see that hug and being reunited, sometimes parents left their kids in diapers, and now the kid is 20 or 21, and they finally get to see each other. So that's the rewarding thing. It's helping people.
Especially the Filipinos. You really have a
Especially
big heart for the Filipinos.
Yeah, they are appreciative. And then when I do episodes on Citizen Pinoy, I feature sometimes the success stories and the sacrifices that they went through for the American dream. They persevered. And that's what I like with the clients. They didn't give up hope. I don't want to give up hope for them as well.
Thank you so much, Attorney, for visiting us and sharing us the right information about immigration, the situation of the Filipinos in the U.S.
Oh, thank you.
And to the Filipinos who are still contemplating on getting a U.S. visa, what to do and what not to do. So those are very good information that you shared with us.
And I am proud of you too. I mean, I know you're self-made and you don't need my opinions about you, but helping you with the first visa and first opportunity to America. Now she's Toni Gonzaga. Now you're able.
Thank you so much.
They gave you your own. Thank you too.
Because he helped us with the working visa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you
again. Nice to see you too.
Maraming salamat for watching today's Toni Talks. And for more meaningful conversations like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Maraming salamat!